Welcome to the English Hour. I'm your host, Sophia, and today we're diving deep into a topic that impacts every aspect of our lives: mindset. How we view ourselves, our abilities, and the world around us can shape our experiences and determine our success. And to help us unpack this, I have a very special guest with me today, Jacob. Welcome, Jacob.
Thanks for having me. Sophia, I'm excited to dive into this topic with you today. Mindset is so crucial, and I'm thrilled to explore it further.
Absolutely. So, let's start with a basic question. What do you think of when you hear the word mindset? How would you define it?
Great question. To me, mindset is essentially the way we approach life and its challenges. It's the set of beliefs or attitudes that guide our decisions, influence how we handle obstacles, and even shape our success. It's the internal dialogue that runs through our heads every day, determining whether we see opportunities or roadblocks.
That's a really insightful definition. So, would you say that mindset is something we're born with? Or is it something that can be developed over time?
I believe mindset is something that's shaped by both our experiences and our choices. We're not necessarily born with a fixed mindset, but we grow into one based on how we respond to situations in life. It's possible to change and improve our mindset as we learn, grow, and gain more self-awareness.
So, we can actively choose to develop a growth-oriented mindset, right? That's so empowering. Can you share a bit about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset?
Absolutely. A fixed mindset is the belief that our abilities, intelligence, and qualities are static. People with this mindset believe that you either have the talent or you don't, and that effort won't change much. A growth mindset, on the other hand, is the belief that with effort, learning, and perseverance, we can improve and develop our abilities over time. People with a growth mindset embrace challenges and see setbacks as opportunities to learn.
That's such a powerful distinction. So, people with a fixed mindset might shy away from challenges because they're afraid of failing, right?
Exactly, people with a fixed mindset tend to avoid situations where they might fail. They believe failure reflects something permanent about their abilities. So, instead of trying something new or pushing their limits, they stick to what they're already good at to protect their self-image.
And on the flip side, people with a growth mindset embrace those challenges, even if they fail. They see it as part of the process of growth.
Exactly, people with a growth mindset understand that failure is not a reflection of their capabilities, but rather a part of the learning process. They believe in the power of effort and see every challenge as an opportunity to stretch themselves and improve.
That's so inspiring. I think so many people can relate to that fear of failure. Do you think it's possible to cultivate a growth mindset if we've been operating with a fixed mindset for a long time?
Absolutely. It's all about shifting your perspective and becoming aware of your thoughts. The first step is recognizing when you're falling into a fixed mindset, like when you avoid challenges or feel discouraged after a failure. Then it's about intentionally reframing those thoughts. Instead of thinking, I can't do this, try thinking, I can't do this yet. That small shift can make a big difference.
I love that. Changing I can't to I can't yet immediately opens up the possibility for growth. It's like giving yourself permission to try and fail without judgment.
Exactly, and with practice, that shift in thinking becomes second nature. Over time, your mindset evolves, and you start to embrace challenges as opportunities instead of threats.
That sounds so liberating. So, Jacob, when it comes to daily habits or actions that can help someone develop a growth mindset, what would you recommend?
One of the best things you can do is practice self-compassion. It's so easy to be hard on ourselves when we fail or make mistakes, but being kind to yourself in those moments is essential for growth. Another key habit is focusing on effort rather than results. Instead of worrying about the outcome, put your energy into the process of learning and improving.
That's such a good point, focusing on the journey rather than the destination. Sometimes, we get so caught up in the end goal that we forget to appreciate the progress we're making along the way.
Exactly. And celebrating small wins is important too. Every time you overcome a challenge or learn something new, take a moment to acknowledge it. Those small victories add up over time and help reinforce a growth mindset.
That's so true. It's like building momentum. The more we celebrate those small wins, the more motivated we become to keep pushing forward. What about dealing with setbacks? How can someone with a growth mindset bounce back after a failure or disappointment?
With a growth mindset, setbacks are seen as temporary and solvable. The key is to reframe the situation. Instead of saying, I failed, say, I learned something valuable. It's about analyzing what went wrong, finding lessons in the experience, and then applying those lessons moving forward. The focus is on improvement, not perfection.
That's such a healthy perspective. It's almost like saying, this setback doesn't define me. It's just part of my growth process. That mindset really helps build resilience.
Exactly. Resilience is built through adversity. If you can face setbacks with a growth mindset, you're less likely to stay down for long. You understand that setbacks don't determine your worth or your future. They're just a stepping stone on the path to success.
And I think that's a game changer when we stop attaching our self-worth to our failures. We free ourselves to try again and again without fear. So, Jacob, in your experience, how have you personally applied a growth mindset in your own life?
For me, it's been a process of trial and error. Early on, I was very focused on outcomes. I'd get discouraged if I didn't achieve something quickly. But over time, I learned that success is about persistence. When I shifted my focus to the process, whether it's learning something new or improving a skill, things started to click for me. It made the journey a lot more enjoyable.
I think that's a great takeaway, enjoying the journey and seeing value in the process, not just the end result. We live in such a result-driven society, but the real growth happens in the day-to-day effort.
Definitely, and I think the more we focus on the journey, the more we start to appreciate the small victories along the way. Those are the moments that shape us and lead to long-term success.
So true. I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing that success doesn't have to be about big milestones all the time. It's those little wins that create real progress.
Absolutely. And it's also about embracing setbacks as part of the process. Every time you face a challenge, you're building resilience, learning, and growing. That's what matters.
Such great advice. I think this conversation is going to help so many people reframe their thinking and embrace a more positive, growth-oriented mindset. Absolutely, there's so much more we can dive into. So, Jacob, let's talk about the power of self-talk. I've heard that the way we talk to ourselves can really influence our mindset. Do you agree with that?
100%. The things we say to ourselves shape how we view the world and ourselves. If we're constantly telling ourselves that we're not good enough or that we'll never succeed, then our actions will reflect those beliefs. But if we encourage ourselves with positive self-talk, it can boost our confidence and push us to take action even when things get tough.
That makes so much sense. It's amazing how much power our inner voice has. So, what are some practical tips for changing negative self-talk to more positive self-talk?
One of the first steps is simply becoming aware of the negative thoughts you're having. Most of the time, we don't even realize how critical we're being towards ourselves. Once you're aware of it, challenge those negative thoughts. Ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have to support this belief? Often, we'll find that the negative thought isn't based on reality, and we can replace it with something more empowering.
That's a great point, questioning those thoughts. It's like giving yourself a little reality check. I guess the more we practice that, the easier it becomes to shift our mindset.
Exactly. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. Another technique is using affirmations. Repeating positive statements like, I am capable, or I am learning and growing every day, can reinforce a growth mindset over time.
I've heard a lot about affirmations. Do you think they really work?
Absolutely. They may feel a bit awkward at first, especially if you're not used to saying positive things about yourself, But affirmations are powerful because they help you reprogram your subconscious mind. Over time, they shift your belief system and help you cultivate a mindset of possibility and growth.
That's really encouraging. So, we've talked a lot about changing our mindset and self-talk. But what about the role of environment? How do the people and places around us influence our mindset?
Environment plays a huge role in shaping our mindset. The people we surround ourselves with can either lift us up or bring us down. If we're constantly around people who have a fixed mindset or who don't believe in our potential, that can hold us back. On the other hand, being around people who encourage growth, celebrate failures as learning opportunities, and push us to become better can help us develop a growth mindset more easily.
That's such a powerful point. It's like the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So, surrounding ourselves with supportive, positive people can really impact our growth.
Exactly. It's also about creating an environment that supports your growth. For example, if you want to develop a growth mindset around learning a new skill, make sure you have access to resources, whether that's books, online courses, or even finding a mentor who can guide you. The more you immerse yourself in a growth-focused environment, the easier it will be to adopt that mindset.
That's a great tip. It's not just about personal willpower. It's also about creating an environment that encourages and supports your growth. Whether it's your social circle, your workspace, or your online community, all of that plays a role.
Absolutely. And sometimes it might mean removing yourself from toxic environments that discourage growth. That can be tough, especially if you've been in those environments for a long time, but it's necessary for your own well-being and development.
That's so true. It can be difficult to let go of negative influences, but in the long run, it's worth it for our mental health and personal growth. Now, Jacob, let's talk a bit about the role of failure in developing a growth mindset. I know we've touched on this a bit, but why do you think people with a growth mindset are able to handle failure so much better than those with a fixed mindset?
People with a growth mindset understand that failure is not a reflection of their abilities or worth. They see it as part of the process of growth. In fact, they often embrace failure as a learning opportunity because each failure teaches them something valuable. People with a fixed mindset, on the other hand, might view failure as something permanent or as proof that they're not capable, so they avoid it or get discouraged by it.
That makes sense. It's like failure is a stepping stone, rather than a roadblock. Do you think the fear of failure is something that can be overcome with practice?
Absolutely. The more we face failure head-on and see it as a normal part of life, the less we fear it. Over time, we start to realize that failure doesn't define us, it's just feedback. When we can reframe failure as something that helps us learn and grow, it loses its power over us.
That's such a healthy way to look at it. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They're so afraid of failing that they don't even try. But once they understand that failure is just a part of the journey, they're more likely to take risks and step outside of their comfort zone.
Exactly. The fear of failure often holds us back more than the failure itself. Once we realize that failure doesn't mean we're not good enough or that we can't succeed, we become more willing to take those risks and try new things.
I think that's a key takeaway for anyone listening. Right now, failure is not something to fear. It's just an opportunity to learn, grow, and improve.
Exactly. And the more we practice that mindset, the easier it becomes to take risks and embrace challenges.
I love how we're diving deeper into this, so, Jacob, let's talk a bit about how we can cultivate a growth mindset in different areas of our lives, like in relationships or work. Do you think the same principles apply in those areas?
Definitely. The principles of a growth mindset can be applied to pretty much every aspect of life. In relationships, for instance, adopting a growth mindset means that you're open to learning from each other, growing together, and not letting setbacks define the relationship. It's about seeing challenges as opportunities to strengthen the connection rather than as failures.
That's such an interesting perspective. especially because relationships can be tough. But with a growth mindset, it sounds like you can view disagreements or difficulties as ways to improve things.
Exactly. In any relationship, whether it's romantic, familial, or even friendships, conflict is inevitable. But with a growth mindset, you approach those conflicts with the belief that you both can learn from them and grow stronger as a result. It's not about blaming the other person or thinking that you're stuck in a negative cycle forever. It's about learning, adapting, and evolving together.
I think that's so important, especially in today's world, where relationships can sometimes feel disposable. But if both parties are willing to learn and grow together, the bond only strengthens, right?
Absolutely. And the same goes for work. In the workplace, a growth mindset means you're always looking for ways to improve your skills, learn new things, and not be afraid of challenges. It's about not being satisfied with good enough, but always striving for excellence. Even if you hit roadblocks, you view them as part of the journey to getting better.
That's an excellent point. So, if you're constantly trying to improve, it also means you're less likely to feel defeated if things don't go as planned. You'll see it as a learning opportunity instead of a setback.
Exactly. And it also means that you're more likely to take on new challenges at work, even if you're not entirely sure you'll succeed. The growth mindset encourages taking those risks because you know you'll learn something valuable, whether you succeed or fail.
That's such a powerful mindset to have, especially when you're working in a field that constantly evolves. Like in your case, you work in a mentioned Jacob's field of work if needed. The growth mindset helps you keep up with changes, right?
Definitely, in fast-paced industries like technology, there's always something new to learn. A growth mindset helps me stay curious and open to change, instead of feeling overwhelmed or stuck when new tools or methods come along. I see it as an opportunity to expand my knowledge and improve.
That's fantastic. And it sounds like, the more we adopt this mindset in all areas, the more natural it becomes to approach challenges with positivity and a solution-oriented attitude.
Exactly, over time, it starts to feel natural to approach problems as opportunities for growth. The more we practice it, the less effort it takes, and eventually it becomes ingrained in how we approach life.
I think this is something a lot of people struggle with, though. They don't realize how much of their mindset is holding them back. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to start adopting a growth mindset, but feels stuck?
The first thing I'd say is to be patient with yourself. Changing your mindset doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, practice, and consistency. Start by focusing on small, positive changes. For example, instead of saying, "I can't do this," try saying, "I can't do this yet." It's a simple change, but it shifts your perspective from one of limitation to one of possibility.
I love that. The yet really opens up a world of possibility. It's not about what you can't do right now, but what you can achieve with time and effort.
Exactly. And don't be too hard on yourself when you slip into a fixed mindset. It's natural to have moments where you feel defeated or stuck. Just recognize those moments, acknowledge them, and consciously choose to shift your thinking back to a growth-oriented perspective.
That's such an important reminder. Self-compassion is key in this process. It's okay to have setbacks, it's all part of the journey.
Absolutely. And remember that adopting a growth mindset is not about being perfect or always being positive. It's about being open to learning, growing, and constantly evolving no matter where you are on your journey.
I think that's a great way to look at it. The growth mindset isn't about never having setbacks, it's about how we handle them and what we learn from them. So, if someone listening today is feeling stuck or unsure, what would you say is the first step they should take?
The first step is to shift your perspective on failure. Stop seeing failure as something to fear or avoid, and start seeing it as feedback. Once you do that, you can begin to embrace challenges, knowing that each one is an opportunity to learn something new.
That's such a powerful piece of advice. I think once we start viewing failures as stepping stones rather than obstacles, everything changes.
Exactly. It's the foundation of a growth mindset. Once you adopt that mindset, it opens up a world of possibilities because you're no longer afraid to try new things or take risks.
I feel like this conversation could go on forever. Jacob, there's just so much to unpack when it comes to mindset. But I think we've covered some incredible ground today.
Yeah, it's been really insightful. It's amazing how powerful our mindset can be in shaping our reality. The more we work on developing a growth mindset, the more we can achieve, not just in one area of our lives, but in every area.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that anyone can start working on right now. Just by changing how we think, we can completely transform how we approach life. I'm so glad we're continuing this conversation, Jacob. So, let's explore a bit more about how mindset can impact long-term success. What do you think makes the difference between someone who adopts a growth mindset and continues to grow versus someone who gets stuck?
I think the biggest difference is persistence. People with a growth mindset don't give up easily. They understand that success doesn't happen overnight, and that setbacks are just part of the process. They keep pushing forward, adjusting their approach, and learning from their mistakes. On the other hand, people who don't embrace a growth mindset might give up when things get hard, or might feel like they've reached their limit when in reality, there's still so much more potential to tap into.
So, persistence is key. I love that, because it's not just about being naturally talented or lucky, it's about staying in the game and learning every step of the way.
Exactly, and that's where the magic happens. The more you persist, the more you learn, and the more you grow. It's the compounding effect. Even small improvements, when consistently made, can lead to massive progress over time.
That's such a valuable mindset shift, seeing progress as a series of small, consistent efforts instead of expecting immediate, huge results.
Definitely. It's like looking at the process, not just the outcome. If you're only focused on the destination, it's easy to get discouraged if you don't see results right away. But when you appreciate the journey and the lessons along the way, every step becomes meaningful.
I think a lot of people struggle with the impatience of not seeing results quickly enough. How do you suggest someone stay motivated during that process, when things seem to be moving slower than they'd like?
That's a great question. I think one of the best ways to stay motivated is to celebrate the small wins along the way. It doesn't always have to be about the big picture. Take time to acknowledge your progress, even if it feels small. And if you're feeling really stuck, revisit why you started in the first place. Reconnecting with your purpose can reignite your motivation and remind you of the bigger vision.
Celebrating small wins is such a simple but powerful tip. It's easy to forget to appreciate the progress you're making when it feels like things aren't moving fast enough.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the end goal, but the journey is just as important, and the small steps forward add up over time. Even if you feel like you're not where you want to be yet, you've already come so far from where you started.
That's such a positive way to look at it. It's all about perspective, right? And speaking of perspective, how do you think someone can shift their perspective when faced with obstacles?
One thing that really helps is reframing the obstacle. Instead of thinking, "This is impossible," try thinking, "This is a challenge I can overcome with time and effort." Reframing obstacles helps take away the power they have over you. It allows you to view them as something you can conquer, not something that's going to stop you.
I love that. Reframing is such a powerful tool. It's all about changing how we interpret the challenges we face. Instead of seeing them as roadblocks, we can see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. And the more we practice reframing, the easier it becomes to approach challenges with optimism and creativity rather than feeling defeated by them.
That's a huge takeaway. And I think a lot of times, we let our emotions cloud our judgment when things get tough. But if we take a step back and reframe the situation, it changes everything.
Yes, it's all about mastering your mindset. Emotions are a part of the process, but they don't have to dictate your actions. Once you learn to control how you respond to challenges, you gain so much power over your own growth.
That's such an empowering thought. It's all in our control how we react, how we view our struggles, and how we choose to push forward. I feel like adopting a growth mindset is really about reclaiming that power.
100%. It's about taking responsibility for our growth and understanding that we can shape our own path. No one else can do that for us, and that's a powerful realization. Once we own that, we're in the driver's seat of our own life.
That's such an inspiring message. And I think the more people embrace this mindset, the more they'll realize that they have everything they need to succeed. It's all about tapping into that potential.
Exactly, when you believe in your ability to grow and adapt, there's nothing stopping you. The possibilities become endless.
You've shared so many incredible insights today, Jacob. I'm sure our listeners are going to leave this episode feeling empowered and motivated to take action in their own lives. This conversation has been amazing.
I agree, it's been such a great discussion. I hope people listening feel inspired to adopt a growth mindset and start taking small steps towards their personal and professional growth.
And I think that's the perfect note to end on for today. Thanks so much for joining me, Jacob. It's been a pleasure talking with you about mindset, growth, and everything in between. Jacob, I've been thinking about something you mentioned earlier, how mindset affects our daily actions. It's not just the big things, right? It's those little choices we make every day that add up over time.
Exactly, mindset affects the small, seemingly insignificant decisions we make on a daily basis. Those are the decisions that can either push us closer to our goals or keep us stuck. For example, when we wake up in the morning, we can choose to either approach the day with enthusiasm and a willingness to learn, or we can let our doubts and fears control us. Every little choice matters.
That's such a great point. It's not about waiting for that big moment to make a change. It's about the everyday moments, the little actions we take, the thoughts we choose to believe, and the mindset we decide to adopt each day.
Right? And that's what makes a growth mindset so powerful. It's not about one grand leap, it's about 1,000 small steps in the right direction. Over time, these small actions compound into big changes.
So, would you say the key to developing a growth mindset is being mindful of those small daily actions and staying consistent?
Absolutely. It's all about consistency. Even if you only take one small action every day, whether it's learning something new, trying something outside your comfort zone, or simply reframing a negative thought, that consistency builds momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful things you can have when you're working towards any goal.
I love that. Momentum is key. Once you get that ball rolling, it becomes easier to stay in motion, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's like a snowball effect. The more you push forward, even if it's just a little bit at a time, the more momentum you build, and soon enough, you're unstoppable.
And I think that's something a lot of people miss. They expect instant results, but the real power comes from sticking with it, even when you don't see immediate change.
Yes, and this is where patience comes in. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It means taking consistent action and trusting the process, knowing that the results will come in due time. It's that balance between effort and patience that really creates lasting success.
That's so well said. Patience isn't about waiting, it's about continuously moving forward with faith that what you're doing will pay off eventually. It's trusting that every little action counts.
Exactly. And going back to the mindset shift, it's all about reframing the idea of success. Success doesn't have to be immediate. It doesn't have to come in a straight line. The process is just as valuable as the outcome.
I love how you've brought everything full circle. Mindset isn't just about the destination, it's about the journey, the growth, and the persistence. And I think once people realize that, it opens up a whole new perspective on their goals.
That's the magic of it, isn't it? Once you realize that the journey itself is the reward, you start to enjoy the process, even when things aren't going perfectly. It becomes less about the end goal and more about who you become along the way.
So true. It's about the person you're becoming in the pursuit of your dreams, not just the dream itself.
Exactly. And I think this mindset shift helps people be more resilient. Life will always throw curveballs, but when you're focused on growth, setbacks don't feel like failures, they feel like part of the journey.
Absolutely. That's what makes a growth mindset so powerful. It teaches you that every experience, good or bad, is an opportunity to learn. There's no such thing as failure when you're always learning and growing.
Right. Failure, as it's traditionally seen, doesn't exist in a growth mindset. There's only feedback. You try something, you learn from it, and you adjust your approach. It's that continuous learning loop that makes growth inevitable.
I think that's a huge takeaway for anyone listening right now. If you can shift your mindset from seeing challenges as setbacks to seeing them as opportunities for feedback, it changes everything. You start to look at every challenge as a stepping stone instead of a roadblock.
And once you start doing that, it becomes easier to take risks, try new things, and step outside your comfort zone. You know that even if things don't go as planned, you'll still learn something valuable along the way.
That's so empowering. It really makes you feel like there are no wrong choices, only lessons. And that's a mindset that can open so many doors.
Exactly. It's a mindset that allows you to live boldly and with confidence. Because even when things don't go as planned, you know you're still growing, and that growth will eventually lead you to where you want to be.
I think that's the ultimate message for anyone listening today. Embrace the journey, trust the process, and believe in the power of growth. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, Jacob.
Thank you for having me, Sophia. It's been a pleasure diving into this topic. I truly believe that if everyone adopts a growth mindset, the possibilities for their lives will be limitless.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone listening. I hope this conversation inspires you to embrace a growth mindset in your own life. Remember, it's all about the small steps, the persistence, and the belief that you're always growing, no matter where you are in your journey. Jacob, before we wrap things up, I wanted to ask you, what role does environment play in shaping a growth mindset? Do you think the people we surround ourselves with influence how we approach challenges?
Oh, that's a great question. Environment plays a huge role in shaping our mindset. When you're around people who believe in growth and are constantly pushing themselves to improve, it's contagious. You start to adopt that same mentality because you see the results in those around you. On the flip side, if you're in an environment where people are stuck in fixed mindsets, constantly complaining about challenges or seeing themselves as victims, it can be harder to stay motivated and believe in your own potential.
So, it's about choosing your circle wisely, right? Surrounding yourself with people who challenge and encourage you to grow, not those who hold you back or reinforce negative beliefs.
Exactly. Your environment, whether it's your friends, your colleagues, or even the content you consume online, has a significant impact on your mindset. If you want to develop a growth mindset, you need to be intentional about who you spend time with and what influences you allow into your life.
That's so important. It's like the saying goes, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're around people who are constantly striving for personal growth, you're naturally going to be inspired to do the same.
Absolutely. And it's not just about physical people. I mean, think about the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the mentors or role models you follow. All of that shapes your perspective and encourages you to grow in different ways.
I love that how it's not just about who you interact with in person, but also about the virtual environment you immerse yourself in. The right books, podcasts, or even social media accounts can be a game changer in maintaining a growth mindset.
For sure, and even when you face setbacks or challenges, having a positive environment can help you reframe those obstacles in a productive way. Instead of seeing them as failures, you'll view them as temporary and part of the growth process. The right influences can help keep you grounded and focused on learning no matter what happens.
I think that's key, having a support system that helps you reframe challenges instead of reinforcing the negative. So, would you recommend actively seeking out communities that support growth and positivity?
Absolutely. Whether it's online communities, mastermind groups, or local networking events, finding people who are aligned with your goals and values can really help you stay focused on your journey. It's motivating to be around people who are moving in the same direction and share similar aspirations.
That's great advice. And it doesn't have to be a huge community, right? Even finding a small group of like-minded individuals who can hold each other accountable and encourage growth can make a huge difference.
Exactly, it doesn't have to be a massive group. A small, tight, knit group of people who support each other can be far more effective than a large group where you don't get that personal connection. Accountability, support, and honest feedback are what truly make a difference.
I think this is such an important aspect of developing a growth mindset that a lot of people overlook. You can't do it alone. Having a community, or at least a few key people who have your back, is essential for success.
Absolutely. And one thing to remember is that even if you don't have a strong support system right now, you can always start building it. Whether it's reaching out to people online, joining a group, or finding a mentor, there are always opportunities to surround yourself with people who uplift you.
That's so true. And it's important to keep in mind that it's never too late to start building your environment. No matter where you are in your journey, you can always take steps toward creating a more supportive and growth-oriented space around you.
That's the beauty of mindset. It's never too late to shift your thinking and take action. And once you start making those small changes, the impact on your growth can be immense.
Well, Jacob, this conversation has been incredibly insightful. I've learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners have too. I hope this episode inspires everyone to reflect on their environment and how they can cultivate a space that supports their growth.
Thank you, Sophia. It's been such a pleasure discussing these ideas with you. I really hope that our listeners take something away from this and start making intentional choices about their mindset and the environment they create around them.
Absolutely. Thank you again for being here, Jacob. And thank you to everyone listening. Remember, growth is a journey, and every step you take, no matter how small, is progress. Keep pushing forward, stay open to learning, and create an environment that nurtures your growth. We'll see you in the next episode. Before we wrap it up, Jacob, I'd love to ask you one more thing. How do you handle those moments when the progress feels slow, or when you hit a roadblock? What keeps you motivated during those times?
That's a great question. I think everyone faces those moments no matter how strong their growth mindset is. For me, when things feel slow or when I hit a roadblock, I remind myself that growth isn't linear. Some days are going to feel like a struggle, and that's okay. What keeps me motivated during those times is remembering my why I started on this journey in the first place. I also focus on the small wins. Even if it's just one small thing I've learned or one step I've taken forward, I celebrate that because it means I'm still moving in the right direction.
I love that. It's all about focusing on the small wins and keeping that bigger picture in mind. And also not being too hard on yourself, right?
Exactly. We tend to be our own worst critics, but sometimes we need to give ourselves a little grace. It's important to acknowledge the effort you're putting in, even if the results aren't immediate. Consistency is key, and even the smallest progress is still progress.
That's such a refreshing perspective. I think a lot of people feel like they should be constantly moving forward at full speed. But sometimes it's about patience and taking a step back to appreciate how far you've come, even on the tough days.
Yes, and that's where mindfulness really plays a role in maintaining a growth mindset. When you can stay present and not get overwhelmed by what's not happening yet, you can enjoy the process more and feel less anxious about the future. It's about being okay with where you are, even while striving for more.
So true. Mindfulness and being present in the moment really helps shift the focus from pressure to progress. It allows you to appreciate the journey, even during the times that feel slow or challenging.
Right? And it's important to remember that nothing worthwhile happens overnight. If you're working on something meaningful, It will take time, but the time you invest will always be worth it in the end.
I think that's such an important reminder for everyone listening. The key is to stay consistent and patient, knowing that every step you take, no matter how small, is getting you closer to your goal. It's that long-term thinking that helps you push through the tough times.
Exactly. And I think when people shift their focus from immediate success to long-term growth, they start to enjoy the process more. It's not about the end result, it's about the person you're becoming along the way. That's where the real value is.
That's such an inspiring way to look at it. I think if more people adopted that mindset, they'd find so much more joy in the journey, rather than just in the destination.
I couldn't agree more. When you're enjoying the process, the destination doesn't seem so far away. And when you do reach your goals, you'll feel even more proud because you've embraced every part of the journey along the way.
That's a perfect note to end on, Jacob. Thank you again for sharing your insights today. It's been such a pleasure having this conversation with you, and I know our listeners will get so much value from it.
Thank you, Sophia. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I hope our conversation helps people think about their mindset and their journey in a new way.
I'm sure it will. And to everyone listening, remember that growth is a lifelong journey. Stay focused, stay consistent, and most importantly, stay patient with yourself. You've got this. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the English Hour. Thank you so much for tuning in. A huge thank you to Jacob for being such an amazing guest and for sharing his wisdom on the importance of mindset. We hope this episode has inspired you to keep working on your growth and embrace the journey, no matter the obstacles. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment below or reach out to us on social media. We'll be back with more episodes to help you grow, learn, and develop your English skills. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and stay motivated. See you in the next episode.